In this second learning module, you'll learn how to set up and operate each of the main components of the Vaser LiPo system. The Vaser LiPo system is a 3-in-1 design that performs infiltration, ultrasonic contouring, and aspiration. Infiltration is performed in conjunction with the VentX console. The VentX console also provides aspiration. Pre-treatment of the fat with ultrasound is achieved using the Vaser amplifier. Let's take a closer look at each part of the
VentX console
precisely and conveniently displays the fluid amounts for infiltration. To set up the system for infiltration, connect the VentX console to an AC power source. Be sure the cord and all applicable foot switch cords are connected. The infiltration foot switch is wireless, activated via infrared. However, the system comes with corded foot switches as well for backup. Turn on the VentX console. The entire Vaser system should power on, noted by both a visual display of the LEDs as well as an auditory hum. Open the peristaltic pump head. Depress the infiltration foot switch to confirm the rollers are active. If pump head rollers do not turn, check that the infiltration rate is exactly on a number. Also check that the wireless foot switch transmitters have working batteries. Test in both directions and at all flow rates. Now you are ready to connect the infiltration tubing. In the sterile field, connect the infiltration tubing to the infiltration cannula or infiltration cannula handle. Pass the opposite end, the end with the bag spike, out of the sterile field. With the infiltration tubing bag spike toward the sterile fluid bag, center the silicone section of the infiltration tubing inside the pump head. Align it with the grooves at the entrance and exit of the pump head. Close the pump head. With the pump head closed, fluid will not flow unless you depress the foot switch. Insert the bag spike into the sterile fluid bag. Without pulling on the IV bag hook, hang the sterile fluid bag on the bag hook. Using the infiltration rate control, select the flow rate indicated on the VentX front display panel. The infiltration flow rate is measured in milliliters per minute. Using the infiltration forward-reverse switch, select the flow direction. Fluid should be pumped toward the patient, indicated by the forward switch. If air bubbles are present in the infiltration tubing, the pump may be reversed to direct the flow back into the sterile fluid bag. Prime the infiltration tubing by depressing the foot switch to fill the line. The infiltration volume display shows the amount of fluid being infused into the patient. Reset the display to 0 before initiating the infiltration process. It is normal for the numbers to jump, especially if the flow rate is set at a high rate or if the infiltration tubing diameter is very small, or if the fluid bag is moved or touched. Avoid touching or moving the sterile fluid bag during the infiltration process. Be sure to record the infiltration volumes and reset the volume display to 0 before you begin infiltration on a new area and before you change bags. If the infiltration process isn't working correctly, review the quick guide or check the troubleshooting tips in your user guide. You can also call Sound Surgical Technical Support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Vaser Amplifier Ultrasonic Contouring. The Vaser amplifier emits pulsed or continuous modes of ultrasonic energy to emulsify fat. Let's see how to set up and test the amplifier for use. To set up for ultrasound application, ensure the Vaser amplifier has power. If the Vaser amplifier is used in conjunction with the VentX console, all components are powered through the main power switch. If your facility uses the Vaser amplifier only, connect the Vaser amplifier to an AC power source and turn the power switch on. Also, ensure the Vaser foot switch cord is connected to the Vaser foot switch receptacle, as well as the Vaser power cord connected to its respective power module on the VentX console. Upon initial power on, the Vaser amplifier should always default to a standby operating mode indicated by a flashing V and C. To place the amplifier into a working mode, toggle the mode switch to select either V or C, Vaser or continuous mode, respectively. Next, you will need to test the Vaser amplifier. It is very important to ensure the Vaser amplifier and the Vaser handpiece is working properly before the patient arrives. To test the amplifier, ensure that the Vaser handpiece is not connected to the amplifier. Set the amplitude to 10%. Set the mode to C, continuous. Press and hold the Vaser test switch for at least 5 seconds. You should hear an intermittent beeping and see the ultrasonic wave and a fault symbol illuminate on the amplifier. Release the Vaser test switch and change the amplitude control to 30%. Again, press and hold the Vaser test switch for at least 5 seconds. This time, you should not see or hear any warning indicators. The Vaser amplifier is operational. If either part of the Vaser test switch fails, call technical support. Now, test the Vaser handpiece. Set the amplitude control to 70 to 80%. Pass the Vaser handpiece connector out of the sterile field. Connect it to the receptacle on the Vaser amplifier. The Vaser probe should already be attached to the Vaser handpiece. In the sterile field, completely immerse the tip of the probe into a cup of sterile water. Depress the Vaser foot switch. If the handpiece is working properly, you should hear a high-pitched sound and see bubbling in the water. You should not see or hear any fault warnings. If the bubbling is weak or non-existent, check that the amplitude is at 70 to 80%. If the system faults or doesn't do anything, the Vaser handpiece may be damaged. Additionally, check the probe alignment. If the probe is not tightened or aligned correctly, you will usually hear a chattering sound when the ultrasound is activated. If this occurs, disassemble the probe, realign, tighten, and retest. If you continue to experience issues, contact technical support. Prior to performing actual contouring, skin ports must be inserted to protect the incisions from ultrasonic energy. If using the skin port discs, they should be attached with sutures anchored in at least 3 points. If using the skin port corkscrews, they should be inserted with the gold skin port insertion tool. Folded towels should be used to protect the skin from contact with the vibrating probe. Outside of an aqueous medium, the probe can generate frictional heat and could burn the skin if pressed into the skin. To initiate ultrasonic contouring, the foot switch must be depressed to activate ultrasonic vibration. The ultrasound foot switch is wireless, activated via infrared. However, the system comes with corded foot switches as well for backup. During the procedure, the physician may request several adjustments to the Vaser amplifier. At the physician's request, toggle between continuous mode and pulsed mode, also known as Vaser mode. When not in use, the Vaser amplifier should be placed on standby mode for prevention of accidental activation. To initiate standby mode, press and hold the mode selection button for 3 seconds. Standby mode is indicated by a flashing V and C on the display panel. Adjust the vibration amplitude, which is the percentage of power being used, by turning the amplitude control knob on the Vaser amplifier. The Vaser timer displays the total time of ultrasonic vibration activation. You can easily record the activation time for each area of the body by noting the accumulated time and then pressing the timer reset button to return the timer to 0. Time is one indication of how long the surgeon should apply ultrasound. The point at which the surgeon no longer feels any resistance is another. Throughout the procedure, attach and detach Vaser probes as needed. In general, for a given diameter, Probes with more grooves or rings fragment tissue more efficiently, but do not penetrate fibrous tissues as easily. For comparison purposes, a 3-ring 3.7 mm probe distributes approximately 70% of its energy from the sides and 30% from the front surface. A 2-ring 3.7 mm probe distributes approximately 50% of its energy from the sides and 50% from the front surface. A 1-ring 3.7 mm probe distributes approximately 30% of its energy from the sides and 70% from the front surface. The circulator, or the person in charge of operating the system, should note ultrasound activation time, probe type, mode setting, and amplitude for each treatment area. This assists the surgeon with dictation, helps reproduce consistently optimal results, and aids troubleshooting for unexpected outcomes. If something is preventing ultrasound activation, such as a broken handpiece or torquing the probe, the Vaser amplifier will automatically fault for safety. A flashing red triangle will appear on the display and an alarm will sound. For this or other troubleshooting issues, check the quick guide or review the user guide. You can also contact Sound Surgical Technical Support at the number printed on the system. The VentX console provides aspiration. This unique vented system provides continual and gentle suction of the emulsified fat. The vented technology minimizes tissue trauma and prevents the strong releases that can occur when the cannula is removed from the tissue. To set up for aspiration, first, ensure that the VentX console is still on. Ensure that the suction filter is connected properly. Tightly attach the canister lids to the canisters and place in the canister rings. You can slide the ruler to adjust for your viewing needs. Use the smaller silicone tubing piece to bridge or daisy chain from one canister to another. Using the longer silicone tubing piece, attach one end to the filter and the other to the suction canister. Next, test the suction by selecting the S for suction using the vacuum mode button, and then occlude the vacuum. There are two ways to occlude the vacuum, either by plugging the end of the suction source tubing or by engaging the occlude mode. To engage the occlude mode, press and hold the vacuum mode button for about 3 seconds. The pump will engage and the A and S will be flashing. This indicates that occlude mode is activated. When vacuum is occluded, you can fine adjust your vacuum level by turning the vacuum level control dial. This fine adjustment feature is useful when precise vacuum levels are required, such as for fat harvesting. Note that there are 2 vacuum displays for easy viewing for the nurse and the physician. If you are unable to see a vacuum ready, you are probably not occluded or the vacuum control is all the way closed. Ensure the dial is turned all the way up, and make sure that the vacuum is completely occluded. Also check to make sure that you are not in ambient mode. The ambient mode, or A, acts like a vent, which clears the pump of condensation and greatly extends the life of the vacuum pump. It does not provide vacuum. Toggle the vacuum mode button to engage the suction mode indicated by the letter S and retest. In the sterile field, connect the suction tubing to the suction cannula handle. Attach the other end of the suction tubing to the selected suction canister. Ensure vacuum is still engaged to suction. During surgery, the physician has the option to leave the suction on during the aspiration phase or exercise the ability to precisely control the vacuum with the electronic foot switch. By leaving the vacuum mode button engaged to suction, this allows continuous aspiration until the button is toggled again to A. For precise control, the physician can step on the suction foot switch to engage suction and step off to return to ambient mode, no suction. The suction foot switch will automatically override the vacuum mode button. Throughout the procedure, record aspiration volumes for each anatomical site. Change the canisters before they reach capacity. Otherwise, overflow or splash may occur and soil the filter. To more effectively prevent filter contamination, be sure to utilize the bridge or daisy chain tubing setup as discussed previously. To change canisters, first disengage suction. Remove the smaller silicone piece from the full canister and attach it to an empty canister. Remove the patient suction tubing from the full canister and connect it to the empty canister. Place the canister caps on full canister. If the canister overflows and fluid reaches the filter, replace the filter immediately after the procedure. To remove the filter, disconnect the silicone tubing and open the panel behind the filter chamber. Insert a new filter and reconnect to clean silicone tubing. The contaminated silicone tubing can be cleaned and autoclaved after the procedure has been completed. Consult the Troubleshooting Quick Guide for assistance. You can also consult the user guide or contact technical support. Shutdown process. After surgery, shut down the Vaser liposystem by following this 5-step process. First, ensure the suction pump on the VentX console is set to ambient mode for 5 minutes. Disconnect the suction and infiltration tubing. Dispose of the tubing in accordance with your institution's guidelines. Remove the Vaser probe from the Vaser handpiece using the Vaser wrench, then disconnect the Vaser handpiece from the amplifier. Twist the outside collar of the handpiece connector as the arrow indicates, and pull away from the amplifier receptacle to release it. Set the handpiece aside for cleaning. Remove all system instruments from the sterile field. Clean and store the foot switches. Wipe down and disinfect the Vaser system. And finally, turn off power to the VentX console. You have completed all 3 modules of the Vaser liposystem in-service instruction. Thank you for taking the time to learn how to set up, operate, and care for the system. You have learned how to operate the VentX console for infiltration and aspiration, and the Vaser amplifier for ultrasonic contouring. You've also learned final shutdown procedures for the Vaser liposystem.